The black sands of Iwo Jima offered no solace. They were a treacherous mixture of volcanic ash and rock, a dark, churning morass that swallowed men and machines whole. On February 19, 1945, as the first waves of Marines scrambled ashore, they entered a landscape that was less a beach and more a killing ground. The air, thick with the smell of salt and cordite, held a deceptive quiet. The expected storm of machine gun fire was absent, a chilling silence that was far more terrifying than any barrage. This wasn't a tactical oversight by the Japanese. It was a carefully orchestrated trap. General Tadamichi Kuribayashi, the brilliant and unyielding commander of the Japanese forces, had seen through the American strategy. He knew a frontal defense of the beaches was suicidal. Instead, he had turned the entire island, a desolate 8-square-mile spit of rock, into an impregnable fortress. His men were not on the surface. They were buried deep within it. The Marines, confident from a massive pre-assault naval bombardment, soon discovered the true nature of the island. Every seemingly innocuous pile of rocks was a camouflaged pillbox. Every ridge was a warren of interconnected tunnels and caves. The enemy was not a visible force to be pushed back, but a ghost that struck from the shadows, disappearing as quickly as it appeared. A machine gun would open fire from a crevice, only to fall silent a few minutes later, its crew having retreated into the labyrinthine defenses. The Japanese had built over 11 miles of tunnels, a vast subterranean network that connected hundreds of pillboxes, bunkers, and command posts. This was not a conventional war. It was a battle against a deeply embedded, unseen enemy. The Marines' traditional tactics, artillery barrages, airstrikes, and frontal assaults, were rendered useless. A grenade thrown into a cave entrance would be absorbed by the winding tunnels, its blast doing little to harm the defenders. A pillbox, seemingly destroyed by a tank shell, would suddenly come back to life, its crew having waited out the barrage in a lower chamber. In this brutal and unforgiving environment, a new kind of warrior was born out of necessity: the flamethrower operator. The M2 flamethrower, a cumbersome and heavy weapon, became the Marines' primary tool for survival. It was a terrifying beast of steel and fire, weighing over 70 pounds when fully loaded. It consisted of 2 large tanks, one for the jellied gasoline, or napalm, and one for the pressurized nitrogen that propelled it. The range was a mere 30 to 40 yards, forcing the operator to get dangerously close to the enemy. This proximity, coupled with the weapon's distinctive silhouette, made the flamethrower man a walking target, a visible symbol of a new and horrifying kind of warfare. He was a magnet for Japanese snipers, who understood that taking out this one man could save dozens of their comrades. For the Japanese, the sight of a flamethrower operator advancing was a harbinger of a terrible and inescapable end. The job of a flamethrower operator was a horrifying blend of courage, desperation, and calculated risk. A typical attack on a Japanese pillbox or cave would involve a small team. First, riflemen and a Browning automatic rifle (BR) operator would lay down a blistering wall of suppressive fire, their bullets sparking against the volcanic rock. Under this cover, the flamethrower operator and his assistant, a comrade who provided close-in protection and carried extra fuel canisters, would move forward with a deliberate, heart-pounding slowness. They had to navigate a landscape littered with landmines and booby traps, their eyes peeled for any sign of movement from the enemy. The psychological weight of this task was immense. The flamethrower man was not just a soldier, he was the personification of the Marines' desperate attempt to find a solution to an impossible problem. He was the one who had to go where no one else could to get close enough to unleash a torrent of fire into the mouth of a cave. The initial days of the Iwo Jima campaign were a relentless education in the brutal efficiency of the Japanese defenses. With every inch of ground gained, the Marines learned to respect the ingenuity and unyielding resolve of their enemy. This led to the refinement of a new, deadly tactic: blowtorch and corkscrew. The blowtorch was the flamethrower, used to flush out or destroy the defenders inside a cave. The corkscrew was a satchel charge, a bag of high explosives used to seal the cave entrance, trapping and entombing anyone who survived the initial firestorm. This grim process became the blueprint for the entire campaign. It was a slow, methodical, and unimaginably costly way to win a battle, but it was the only way. The flamethrower operator, the man with the blowtorch, became the central figure in this deadly dance. He was not just a soldier. He was the linchpin of every advance, the key to unlocking the island's defenses. The immense danger faced by flamethrower operators stemmed from a combination of factors. First, the weapon itself was a liability. The M2 was heavy and unwieldy, making it difficult for the operator to move quickly or take cover. The tanks of napalm and pressurized gas on his back made him a large, slow-moving target. While the rumor that a direct hit could cause a catastrophic explosion was never officially confirmed, the psychological fear was real, and the sight of a flamethrower operator was a powerful motivator for Japanese snipers. They knew that taking out this one man could stop an entire assault in its tracks. A veteran of the battle, Marine Private First Class Richard A. Rucker, later recounted, "They had a way of zeroing in on those flamethrowers. You'd see a guy get hit and the whole team would be scattered. You just knew that was a high-risk job." The second and perhaps most significant danger was the nature of the terrain itself. Iwo Jima was a landscape of stark contrasts: razor-sharp volcanic rock, deep ravines, and steep slopes. There was no soft earth to dig into, no place to seek cover from an ambush. The Japanese had masterfully exploited this, placing their pillboxes and caves in positions that offered interlocking fields of fire, ensuring that any approach was met with a hail of bullets. The flamethrower operator, burdened with his heavy equipment, had to advance across this open, unforgiving ground. He couldn't sprint to a position. He had to walk, a slow, methodical march into the jaws of death. The intense heat of the island, a tropical sun beating down on black volcanic rock, compounded the physical strain, sapping the energy of these already burdened men. The climax of the flamethrower's role came during the brutal fighting for the Central Highlands, an area the Marines dubbed the meat grinder. Here, Kuribayashi's defenses were at their most dense and sophisticated. The ground was a maze of ridges, ravines, and caves, making every foot of ground a bloody battle. The flamethrower operators, often working in pairs and supported by tanks and riflemen, were tasked with the impossible. They had to clear a path, cave by cave and pillbox by pillbox, in a battle of pure attrition. The scenes that unfolded were harrowing. The whoosh of the napalm, a sound that became synonymous with the Marines' advance. The billows of thick black smoke that poured from the cave entrances, and the terrible screams that were sometimes heard over the din of battle. The sheer number of flamethrower operators killed and wounded was a testament to the essential and incredibly dangerous role they played. They were the ones who carried the weight of the battle on their backs, both literally and figuratively. The legacy of the flamethrower at Iwo Jima extends far beyond the battle itself. It became a powerful symbol of the brutal reality of the Pacific War and the lengths to which soldiers were willing to go to secure a victory. The experience of those who wielded the blowtorch had a lasting impact, both on the conduct of future wars and on the men themselves. The flamethrower, once considered a specialized and somewhat unreliable weapon, proved its terrifying effectiveness in clearing entrenched positions. The lessons learned at Iwo Jima were applied in subsequent conflicts, notably in the clearing of tunnels during the Vietnam War. But the most significant impact was on the flamethrower operators themselves. They returned home with the scars of war etched into their memories, the images and sounds of that hellish campaign forever haunting their thoughts. Their heroism, though often overshadowed by the iconic image of the flag raising on Suribachi, was the true key to victory. They were the unsung heroes who faced the enemy head-on, armed with a weapon that promised a terrible death to both the enemy and, more often than not, to themselves. The flamethrower operator was the embodiment of the unforgiving life-or-death struggle for every single yard of Iwo Jima's black sand.